Welcome to the Ivan Herrera Show. For starters, excuse the voice. It went a little bit haywire over the weekend. I go to church, so that's probably what it was, all the praise and worshiping and then all the interacting. But anyways, we have a waiver wire episode. Excuse the delay, but we are here to go over players that you should be adding, players that you should be dropping. And we're going to first begin with players that really showed out. And I have to give a shout out to my guy, Saquon Barkley from the Philadelphia Eagles. He continues to fly high, had 255 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, caught 4 receptions on 4 targets, 47 yards. The number one fantasy player this past week with over 40 plus fantasy points. This is now in his last 4 games, he's had 3 games with 30 plus point performances in PPR. He continues to be a rock star for Philadelphia and currently has my vote for the MVP. Next, we're going to go over is going to be Trey McBride from the Arizona Cardinals. He continues to shine as an elite tight end, had 12 receptions on 15 targets, 133 yards, also was able to have 30 plus points in PPR formats. He's been averaging 14.17 points per game in the specific format, and he's done it with 0 touchdowns. So this guy's just been getting targets and has been maximizing on that volume. Next, we're going to go over is going to be Jordan Addison from the Minnesota Vikings, who is continuing to build off of his great performance he had in week 11. He had a career night as far as his yardages go. He had 8 receptions on 9 targets for a career high 162 yards. And what's impressive too, in his last 4 games, he has had 3 games with at least a touchdown. Also, during that 4-game stretch, he has had 5 plus targets, and he's also coming off back-to-back games with 8 plus targets as well. And then lastly, we saw Tua Tagovailoa emerge for another 3 plus touchdown performance for the 2nd straight week, and in doing so, he also helped revitalize Jalen Waddle, who came back from the grave with 8 receptions on 9 targets, 144 yards, and a touchdown. Now, before we go over some players that you should be adding, it's essential to find out which ones you can actually release and drop. And the first one we're going to go with is going to be Jonathan Brooks from the Carolina Panthers. He only had 2 carries for 7 yards, and the point is, it is so late into the season, and with Chuba Hubbard not only signing that extension earlier in the month but getting all the touches, Jonathan Brooks for me doesn't seem like he'll be making much of an impact for your fantasy rosters. If of course you are playing in Dynasty, he's still worth the stash. As far as redraft goes, Jonathan Brooks is a safe cut for me. Next is going to be tight end Dalton Schultz from the Texans. Listen, he had 2 receptions on 2 targets for 20 yards, has not had a touchdown, nor has he had a double-digit performance in fantasy this year, thus making him an easy drop for me going into week 13. Next is going to be Audric Estime, who's someone that we thought was going to really shine in this offense. He's now being seen as the RB3 once again. He has had back-to-back dud performances, only saw 15 rushing yards in week 12 after coming off with 16 rushing yards in week 11, only had 3 carries, someone that is not doing much in this offense, and you can easily drop him now. And the next one's going to be wide receiver Jamarcus Robinson out of the Los Angeles Rams. He's coming off now 3 straight weeks with dud performances, only had 2 receptions on 3 targets for 15 yards. With Puka and Kupp obviously back into the lineup, Robinson is just not getting involved in this passing game, so someone that is easily worth dropping. Hey, before we go over the players you should be adding off of waivers, do me a solid. If you're getting value, most of you aren't already subscribed, so hit the subscribe button as well as the like button. Let's go over the waiver wire ads for this upcoming week. And the first one is going to be David Moore out of the Carolina Panthers. He's currently only rostered in 0.1% of ESPN rosters. He caught 6 receptions on 10 targets for 81 yards and a touchdown, also giving you a 20 plus point performance in fantasy and PPR formats. Since week 8, he has seen a steady snap percentage. He's also worth stashing considering that he's going to be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are bottom 8 in points allowed to the opposing wide receiver. Next one is going to be Devaugh Vele out of the Denver Broncos. He's currently only rostered at 1.7% of ESPN leagues. This past week, he saw 8 receptions on 9 targets for 80 yards, giving you 14 points in PPR. He's now also coming off 3 straight games with double-digit production in PPR formats, and he's currently also having 4 plus targets during that streak, and he also had a career high 9 targets as well as a career high in yardage with 80 this past week in week 12. And he also faces the Cleveland Browns, who are at bottom 10 defense in points allowed to the opposing wide receivers, so the recent production as well as the upcoming matchup make him a must add for me in waivers this upcoming week. Next we're going to go over is going to be Ameer Abdullah out of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's currently only rostered at 19.3% 100% of ESPN leagues. He had 8 rushes for 28 yards, but showed his value in the receiving game with 5 receptions, 6 targets, 37 yards, 1 touchdown. He did play 90% of the snaps in week 12. With so many question marks in that running back room, as well as the shortened week, considering that the Raiders play on Friday for the Black Friday matchup versus the Chiefs, Ameer Abdullah could be in line for another game where you can expect him to get most of the carries in that backfield. Now, with all that said, I would tread carefully with Ameer Abdullah anyways, because he is going to be facing the Kansas City Chiefs, who actually allow the fewest points to opposing running backs thus far. These next two are probably going to be the most important ones, and this first one is going to be Jonnu Smith, tight end out of the Miami Dolphins. Now, he could be rostered in most of your leagues, but he's definitely worth checking, considering that he's currently only rostered in 59.2% of ESPN leagues. This past week, he saw a season high in targets with 11, as well as a season high in receptions with 9. He also was able to combine that with 87 yards in the air, 1 touchdown, giving you now 2 back-to-back performances with 20 plus PPR points. And Jonnu has been actually phenomenal when compared to his peers at the tight end position. Currently, he is 7th in target as well as target share. He is 3rd in yards after catch. He is 5th in deep targets. With these impressive rankings, he also gets to see a pretty good matchup versus the Green Bay Packers, who are actually in the bottom 10 in points allowed to the opposing tight end position. And this last one is going to be Jeremy McNichols out of the Washington Commanders. He's currently only rostered in 1.2% of ESPN leagues. With the injuries with Brian Robinson as well as Austin Eckler, it is very much likely that you will see Jeremy McNichols take over this offense. Now, the Titans matchup doesn't excite me. However, with Jeremy McNichols already showcasing that he can fill in this offense. Remember, let's look back over here. In week 4, with Austin Eckler out, McNichols saw 8 carries for 68 yards, had 2 touchdowns, and had a very efficient 8.5 yards per carry. And he's still, in my opinion, someone that is worth stashing at the very least to see if he is going to get a bigger role, assuming that we see hindrances from both Brian Robinson as well as Austin Eckler as we get into the week. Hey, thank you so much for making it to the very end of this video. It means the world to me. Thank you for also tolerating my lost voice here. However, if you got value in this video, do me a solid, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and check out some of these other videos that I have here on the channel that will help you out as we gear up for the fantasy football playoffs. Until next time, take care, God bless, peace.